Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's one more series for all of our players here in Group D to figure out who's going to be moving on into that round of 12 and round of 8. We do have Pig, we have Todd. Gentlemen, our mainstream match is going to be Deer versus uThermal. Deer at the moment currently leading the group with a 3-1. uThermal 2-2 at the moment in that third place position. However, everything can go topsy-turvy if there's some results like uThermal winning 2-0, etc. So it could get a little bit crazy here.
Yeah, this is definitely down to the wire. Complex calculations going on somewhere, and we're not going to tell you 100% a person's going through or not until we have confirmation. Just watch, cheer for the players you want to get through, and every win counts at this point. You know, Deer has looked astronomical so far in this group. He started out slow with that early loss to Scarlet. I feel like maybe he was just getting warmed up a little bit, but since then he's been on fire, even crushing TY with that decisive 2-0.
Yeah.
I feel like this scenario makes everything all the more interesting. Usually it's, you know, it's between 2 players, sometimes maybe 3. Now, nobody's out yet. Deer is pretty much through, but nobody's out, and that's just crazy. Like, all of these players' fates are in their own hands, and they have to win their matches.
Yep, and then for some of the people down towards the bottom, they have to rely on some of the other matches going their way, etc. So other matches that are going to be going on are Bunny versus TY. Bunny currently sat at the bottom of the ranking right now, and TY up at 2nd place. And then Sue versus Scarlet, as both of those Zergs are fighting in the middle of the pack right now. So both those matches are going to be covered here on the laptops as well. How do you think this is going to play out? Realistically speaking, because
I mean, this is so hard to call, right? Like, Sue and Scarlet are both players who are prone to do very aggressive builds to each other, throw caution to the wind and just go wild with it. That's going to be interesting. I think this Deer uThermal match, we know uThermal has big aggressive tendencies. I think Deer's the favorite with how he's played so far, though.
All right, well, thank you very much, guys. It's time to get into our final matches of the night, unless there's tiebreakers. Let's head over to the main stage.
It's been a long but an amazing day full of great StarCraft II action, and it finally comes down to this last match of Group D. Are you guys ready? Please welcome on stage your last 2 players. It is uThermal and Deer.
Alrighty guys, let's do this one more time, unless we do get those tiebreakers that James mentioned for the last official best of 3 of this group. Anything is still possible. I'm Rotterdam, with me is the Muslim Ben. uThermal does have his fate in own hands. Can he do it here?
Absolutely. I mean, he's 2-2 in a group with some absolute top-notch players. He's been playing good the whole day too. He started off with a 1-2 loss against TY, but looked very fresh and very strong in his TVZ against Scarlet, and also defeating Bunny. He's got a chance against Deer, man.
Yep, and obviously he plays a pretty weird and unique style of Terran as well. I mean, uThermal's got a couple of very gnarly 2-base pushes that the European Protoss know all about. I'm not sure if Deer knows those builds too well, so maybe he can catch him off guard with at least one of them. But it's a pretty unique scenario, guys, that we have over here in Group D. We know that Deer and TY will advance the run of 12, so that's going to be awesome for them. But we don't know who's going to finish out on top. We also know that any of the other 4 players can still technically make it. Now, you can say uThermal absolutely controls his own fate. Scarlet needs a little bit of help potentially in this match from our friend Deer. Sue and Bunny need a lot of help, but there are actually some realistic scenarios where even Sue is at the bottom of the group. If Sue wins 2-0, all that Sue needs, and I'll say all between brackets, is that TY beats Bunny. I mean, that is perhaps expected. And that uThermal loses to Deer here, so even for Sue, the dream is absolutely not dead yet.
Anyhow, Kevin, we are getting into the final game of the day. It is Spawning in the top left as our blue Protoss, Deer.
First map is Kairos Junction, as you guys could have seen already, which is a big map, but when it comes from natural to natural, it really doesn't take that long, and that's something that this man in the right bottom side likes quite a bit, with all of his 2-base pushes. Can he do it? Representing Liquid, it's uThermal.
One of the greatest Terrans the foreign scene has ever seen. And you are totally right, Kevin. This is a map that is very prone to tank pushes and stuff, just given it's so short and it's very easy to get a Protoss trapped in that natural base. Now,
we were watching a little bit of Deer versus TY as well, right? And TY tried a similar push to something that uThermal is absolutely capable of executing, but he kind of shut it down, didn't he?
Oh, absolutely, Kevin. And we talked about how uThermal had a bit of a weird style, but so did Deer, a man of your own heart, you could say. He went to 1 Forge, +1 Phoenixes in the air, lots and lots of charge lots. It was Rotty in Korean form.
I mean, I always have a soft spot for people that research +1 air weapons when they go Phoenixes, but it doesn't take much to win my love. When you do that, you're a Protoss to my heart.
Absolutely, and if we talk about other games in this series too, so Dia started off 0-2, a bit rocky against Scarlet. And we thought, oh, this might be an early exit for him, given that, and it was kind of weird seeing that, but took down TY 2-0, Bunny 2-0, so his PVT's been looking phenomenal.
Yep, hasn't dropped a map against any of the other 2 Terrans, but once again, that doesn't necessarily mean that uThermal has no shot here. Stylistic things are, you know, stylistic preferences are a real thing in StarCraft II, and there is a chance that maybe uThermal style just simply does a little bit better against Deer than the style that TY would normally bring to the table. And once again, guys, I mean, how much does Deer really know about uThermal? I'm sure he knows who he is, and I'm sure he's seen a game or 2 and 3, but it's not like Deer plays against uThermal on a weekly basis.
No, absolutely not, and uThermal's definitely been one of those Terrans that can whip out some special things. I remember last year he was one of the guys that was pulling out mech against Protoss, but doing it really, really well before it became even a possibility. uThermal opted for gas first this game, meaning he's going to get a Reaper out, a quite fast factory as well, going for a decent reactor. And the question is really, what is uThermal going to throw at this Protoss opponent? There's so many openings available. So far, Dia looked like he was a real wall against Protoss.
Whenever I see a Protoss going for a fast robotics facility, I always feel that they're going to try to deal with the initial Terran aggression. After that Reaper fast expand, we know there are so many possibilities, of course, for Terran. Could be a mine drop, can also be a couple Hellions, could be something with a medevac, can also be a Liberator and a couple Hellions in the natural. But if you have that fast robo that allows Protoss players to get a quick Warp Prism, and a quick Warp Prism entry gateways can end games. Now, in general, I do think those games get a little bit wonky and they can get very weird, because if Protoss moves out, they often have very little at home. But we do know how deadly those pushes can be. But it's actually going to be an Observer first.
This is a really strange opening, and here uThermal's getting on top of this Stalker. 2 Hellions out, 4 Marines. He does held off the aggression, but we do see in the production tab a medevac and more Hellions being reacted out. So
wow, that's weird, huh?
Yeah, he's going to be going, or hoping to go on a probes killing spree this game, which that is unusual. But I do like this wall off at the front for Dia. This makes it a lot harder for those medevac, or for the Hellions to run in if they do choose to go through the front door. Yeah,
but what if the Marines just show up in the natural and the medevac actually flies into the main base with those Hellions? It's funny, guys. The reason I say it's weird is not because a Hellion drop is ultra uncommon. We've seen it before. It's just that normally you see it like 2 and 2. And this was a good old 1-1-2. That is a massive scout. For Deer, obviously, the Observer just saw everything. But uThermal's actually not sending anything into the main base. He's going to go for a full-on aggression here, but that 1 shield battery is going to be so important. The Adept is in a rough spot, though.
It is in a rough spot, and it's taking so much extra damage from those Hellions, but Dia holds this easily, and I just saw uThermal there kind of muttering something to himself. So having this strategy shut down so easily, this didn't even scratch Dia.
It's funny as well, because this actually hit pretty fast. You look at the clock, and it was like 4:15, 4:20 by the time that this aggression started. If Deer has no shield battery there, guys, that actually becomes very gnarly. Because, yeah, Stalkers are very good near shield batteries, but if they're away from shield batteries, they suddenly take quite a bit of damage from Marines and Hellions. And then there is a chance that uThermal does get those 6 to 10 probe kills that he's looking for, but that one battery just shuts everything down, and looking back at it, it would have been so much better to have those Hellions in the medevac and just unload into the main base.
uThermal seeing if he can get a spot in that base, seeing if the wall's open. It is not, and he does see a third on the way too. We do see something that uThermal doesn't, which is Colossus are in production. Now, uThermal's tech has been severely delayed, given that he did invest a lot in this push, and right now he is a little bit behind.
And he's still stuck with these Hellions, right? Like, what are you going to do with them? He did save them, and you can obviously repair them, but without medevacs, these Hellions are pointless at this point, because, like you said, Dia went for that very early wall, and that's also not something that every Protoss does in this matchup.
That was smart, though.
Yep. No,
After seeing the Hellions early on, he was like, hey, what can I die to? Hellions at the front, make a wall.
It paid off in a big way, but I'm sure that if uThermal could rewind this game and unpause it...
You'd switch it up.
Yep, he'd switch it up, and he'd probably try to go for a Hellion drop in the main base, because there was no shield battery in the main either. So even if they would warp in a Stalker or two, let's say, there is still a chance that uThermal gets a lot of damage done, and those Marines that could have just left, you know, near the ramp in the natural, and maybe if Dia brings all of his units into the main base.
A juicy probe line for these Hellions. Oh, that's a lot of kills, actually. This, even though this didn't do damage early on, this is definitely what uThermal was looking for.
And normally you don't count on that either, on these Hellions being very useful in this matchup. Like 6 minutes into the game, that's where it normally becomes very hard for Terran to find value out of them, so well done by uThermal.
I love what our observer was showing us there too. Dia has not yet spotted the 4th and 5th barracks. While he might smell it, this is not popular in Korea at all. What you often tend to find is a 2-base push Terran, then he takes a late 3rd on location while he's doing it. Even denying this observer too, so he's not going to sniff it out here.
Yeah, but I do think that Dia is reading into it, right? He's adding extra gateways at this point. I'd be very shocked if he builds even more probes than he currently has already. I think sometimes, you know, a player as good as Dia doesn't need to see everything to know that it's actually there. These Hellions, I mean, they were still looking for openings. Hope they get lucky. Look at Dia, he's just warping in Zealots, not building any extra probes. It is a beautiful skin indeed, Observer.
This is more what we expect from the Hellions though, right? Like them just dying eventually. The 8 probes was pretty good. His worker count would actually be up to 64 probes if those didn't die.
I like what Dia is doing here. He's moving out already. I don't think Dia is really going to commit to a fight, and he's never going to run into these tanks while they're sieged up. Good scan there by uThermal. But obviously it's very hard for a Terran with tanks to just march to the other side of the map. With Marines, with tanks, you don't really want to get a fight like that. Dia is even going to swing around. He can obviously always recall as well if uThermal does decide to ignore this. This is rough for uThermal. He wants to attack, but at this point, Dia, you don't have to do this.
Absolutely not. Losing 2 Stalkers there. That was a bit clumsy of him, and uThermal's got a really big supply. It's very obvious that he's going for an all-in at this point. +1 weapons is finished. Multiple tanks joining the field as well.
I really feel that Dia should always leave a couple of those Zealots at the 3rd base of uThermal, and by the time that this army is halfway across the map, yeah, you send them into the natural. But this is also what I mean. Dia's buying time. Dia should not commit to this fight. Dia not paying attention there, so he's actually going to end up losing a couple of these Zealots. What's the Viking count? It's not that high, right? 3, 4, something along those lines?
No, and that is a scary Colossus number, but 5 tanks, that is definitely scary. Look how Dia's moving out on the map too. Does he not realize where this army is, or is he just going for a base trade here?
I think he's going for a counterattack, and then he can always recall later on. I think that's probably the best choice. He's also, I think, researching Storm. There's a couple of High Templars there in the mix. uThermal did leave 1 tank behind, but that's obviously not going to be enough. The missile turret is actually going to be a little bit annoying. It's important. Dia is throwing away a lot of units here, Ben.
Absolutely. Sacking the 3rd at this point, 10 probes down. Back at home, though, uThermal's taking a lot of damage in the natural, and there isn't much that can clean up these Colossi. There are 2 Vikings. He's even going in shift mode, so, okay, the Warpins are defensive here, though.
I actually think it's a little bit crazy by Dia. I would have loved to see him recall a bit faster. Now these tanks are going to be in a very, very scary position, and maybe he is indeed going for a full-on base trade. But what did they say again about Terrans and base trades?
They're pretty good at it, Kevin, but what is Dia's plan here? Is he just going to try and get out another Colossus? He hasn't really utilized that robotics facility since he moved out on the map. Maybe he's just going to try and gut the Terran completely, but all these Colossi are getting very low, actually. Ooh, nice Warp Prism micro.
Yeah, but even the real damage that uThermal's doing here is already going to pay off if the armies do eventually clash, right? That's very nice, because the HP will never regenerate. The shields will. Look at these Vikings, by the way. Did he get the Warp Prism?
He got the Warp Prism, so there's no more juggling, but the Colossi all surviving on low health. What? But the main, is he going to forfeit the main?
I actually like this so much for uThermal at this point. I mean, I feel like these tanks are always going to be in position to recall. Is he going to recall? That's a great fight, by the way, for the Marines against there are the Colossus, but they're so low in HP already from the previous fight.
Is uThermal going to do it? 43 supply against 44. This is so close. Every unit matters at this point. uThermal kind of smiling and grimacing at the same time. Dia did clean it up, but he lost everything back at home and left one Colossi just to deal damage over here.
And it's actually dealing with the production, though. I mean, uThermal doesn't have much. I thought that the tanks were going to take care of the Colossi. This is so rough for uThermal because he does have some money. He could technically produce some units, but
32 kills this Colossi has, Kevin. That was, I don't know if that was a mistake by Dia or if it was planned to leave a Colossi back at home, but that has just gutted the economy and production of uThermal.
I think uThermal actually has nothing to deal with his army anymore. That got incredibly close, and I think Dia played a very dangerous game there in the end. But somehow it did pay off. uThermal's going to send his SCVs. I mean, Dia doesn't have much of an economy, but uThermal has no army, and that's a bigger problem.
Where is uThermal's army? Is this just... Okay, so this is his little camp outpost here, which it's not looking fresh, it's not looking strong. He does know that he did damage Dia dearly as well, but...
No Warp Prison, by the way, so that wall-off is actually going to be kind of annoying. Maybe uThermal's still sort of in this. I know his army is very, very little.
Oh, that's so much income potential that's out on the map. He can ferry it back into the base.
Yep, and there are some mineral patches left in the main. It's not much. I think DS is going to break through. I think he doesn't like waiting, so he's going to cast a Guardian Shield. Look at the Viking, by the way, getting a couple shots up. But this is it.
That was an ambitious Viking. uThermal, his last tank getting cleaned up. His Medivacs flying away with his last battle units inside too. Dia taking over the main base of uThermal.
Imagine if there's one more tank there. Then actually I think it becomes a lot harder to walk up that ramp. But now uThermal is going to be forced to completely abandon his main base. He has almost no SCVs left anymore. He has 10 army, but which is like 2 Medivacs. I mean, 4 supply Medivacs. I think he's going to try to kill the last remaining probes and then hoping that Dia will never have enough money to produce a Stargate. But that's not going to happen. There are a couple Stalkers here that are going to keep this base safe. And I think the writing is on the wall for game 1. uThermal made this a lot closer than I initially thought it was going to be after that failed Hellion start. But it seems like Dia has finally taken control of this game.
And we need to remind you guys, if uThermal wins this, no matter what else happens in the group, he will be through the group stage. So a lot rides on this series. And that's why we see uThermal sticking in this game, even coming up with any scenario possible to try and win it, but it doesn't look good for our Dutch Terran.
I love how Dia just squeezed out a Dark Shrine on 17 probes. Jeff is out there somewhere. He's like, yes, always get a Dark Shrine. 17 probes or 77, it doesn't matter.
What's the plan here for uThermal?
Well, like I said, I think he's going to try to clean up this army. I have no idea. I mean, it's like you said, it's a desperation move, and maybe he thinks that there's almost no probes at all, and he feels if he can clean up that army once, then maybe... Like, he's hiding a building, right? He's clearly hoping that Dia will never be able to afford a Stargate unit, but we know that's not the case. Look at Dia's bank, by the way. Dia's saving up some money, so if it really boils down to it, that was somewhat a decent fight, but... Can uThermal get the probes? If he can always recall. Dia can always recall the Colossus.
5 DTs, by the way, were produced just then. Where?
Blink!
Oh my gosh, when you see that as well, you know your opponent's mining quite a bit.
That's actually a little bit risky, because if he loses his probes...
Absolutely, even getting blink DTs and a recall back at home.
He knows that he cannot lose those probes, because Dia knows that he can never lose the game, but he can technically draw it if he would lose the last few probes. Where is that building? It's all the way on the south side. But at this point, uThermal's just counting down, hoping, it's like, please tell me you can afford a Stargate. But there is that Stargate, and I think the moment that uThermal sees that Stargate, I think he should know that this one is over.
Dia definitely played a scary game with the way that his army moved out on the map. And
he waited such a long time.
Yeah, and it was really nice. You know, he knew a tank push was incoming, so he knew he had to be on the map and just slow down the push.
No, I love that part.
Because the sooner you engage it, the more it has to siege up getting to you. But very, very ballsy and crazy by him.
I love that part, but then I think he overdid it a bit by basically sacrificing 2 out of his 3 bases. But he did pick up a couple of the units. uThermal is going to dive on top of the sentry, spots the Stargate and calls GG. Dia will take the 1-0 lead in the last best of 3 of this group, at least for these two. But uThermal's not down and out yet. 2-0 or 2-1 doesn't really make a difference for uThermal. Even a 2-1 victory is enough to secure his 3rd place in this group.
Absolutely. So if uThermal loses this game, there is a... Well, it's going to look really rough for him, because the other 2 matches, it's TY against Bunny. If TY wins that, Bunny's out. But Bunny can still go through as well. And if Sue wins against Scarlet, Sue could still be through. It's very, very close, this group. A lot on the line as well.
I think a lot of us predicted that in the beginning of the day. I called this group the Wild Wild West. I was like, I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. I'm expecting TY to advance, but other than that, I have no idea. Well, Deer has definitely surprised me, especially like you said, after that first rough series of the day that he had against Scarlet, right? Yeah. Deer opened up with a 0-2 loss versus Scarlet, and I was like, well, is this going to be another creator? No, not at all. Deer really turned it around, winning the next 3 best-of-3s, and now even looking in a prime position to potentially win this group. And guys, we talk a lot about how much this series means for uThermal, but this means a lot for Deer as well. Since Deer took out TY, Deer also knows that if he wins this series, he takes first place. And that's not just advancing to the round of 12, that's straight into the round of 8. That means you're skipping around, and it's also $5,000 extra.
Yes, Kevin, it is a lot of money. Is that 10K guaranteed?
Yep, for quarterfinals it's 10K, round of 12 is 5K, and obviously he will get the $200 for winning this best-of-3 as well. So if he wins this one, he has secured himself already 10,800.
He's been looking really sharp too. This is 5-0 in maps against Terrans in this group stage, and he seems confident, he seems happy, he seems like he's bouncing on the stage. Not out of anxiety or stress either. He looks like he's genuinely enjoying playing.
Yep, Deer was one of the absolute titans in StarCraft 2 in 2013 when he won a GSL code.
I'm sure he was a good Orc player as well, you know?
I believe it. I mean, if you play Protoss at this level, I'm pretty sure you can run around with a Blade Master and chop up an Archmage every now and then. But obviously in 2013, I think that was his year where he really shined. He won the WCS Season 3 Continental Finals back then in Canada, and he came into BlizzCon as the prime candidate to win it all. But then, of course, Jaedong has had his legendary on Burrow moment and actually ruined Deer's fairy tale, winning the 3 biggest tournaments of that year in a row.
And Deer did kind of disappear for a little while, but it's good to see him back in peak form. And I honestly didn't expect him to do as well as he has done here already. Those games against TY an absolute genius, he really knocked him out, and quite simply too.
He's getting pumped up as we are getting ready to hop into the second game of this best-of-3. Once again, a lot of things are still possible in this group, but Deer just wants things to end right now. He's like, give me that first spot, send me into the top 8 of this tournament, where I will join the fellow Protoss brothers. Well, actually, it's only one Protoss brother that's guaranteed in the top 8. Well, no, technically it's 4, because second and third place finishes could meet each other as well. We're gonna get a couple Protosses either way in the left top side of Year 0. Representing Newbie, it's Deer.
And spawning over in the northeast side of Year 0, one of the largest maps we've ever had in a pool. Representing Team Liquid, it is uThermal.
If Deer wins here, we're guaranteed 2 Protosses in the quarterfinal. But there's also a chance that Zest goes up against Neep and Trap goes up against Hero. That would obviously make it 4. But there is also a chance that those guys don't get matched up, and then all the Protosses could technically lose. So it could be anything from 2 to 4.
Could be. Anyhow, this, again, I just want to mention, a huge map. Makes it very difficult.
Massive.
Yeah, makes it very difficult for those 2 base pushers. Obviously, Warpins don't really care about the distance in the map, but it can slow down Protoss a lot too.
Yep. I've seen uThermal. Did uThermal have like an epic game on this map against Real? It was, or uThermal versus Goblin actually of WCS Winter, where I think uThermal had like 18 siege tanks or something in the middle of the map, and he did make a push, and he somehow pushed his way with tanks from one side of Year 0 to the other. But I'm in total agreement with you. A 2-base push on this map seems highly unlikely. There are some weird 3-base pushes you can obviously always make, but I'm actually kind of surprised that uThermal was okay with playing this map.
Me too. When I think about TVP, I want to do that 2-base push. I want to get a late third. And the fact that he's comfortable about playing on this is very odd to me. But he is one of these players that likes those tank macro games, likes getting a third up, likes being in your face with drops. Now, it definitely has to be said, getting a drop in the main base as a Terran player on this map, it is very hard to defend as a Protoss.
But if Deer plays Stargate on Automaton, I'm pretty damn sure that he's going to do it on Year 0 as well, right? This seems like a pretty damn good
look at this, by the way. He's just stopped gas mining entirely.
Hellions, then I guess?
I wouldn't be surprised if we have Hellions. We could have like a very quick third base.
But there we already have this target, by the way, for there. Like I said, if you like it on Automaton, there is a very big chance you like it on Year Zero as well. This map is even better for Phoenix than that one is. And we saw how comfortable he was with the Phoenix, Zealot and eventual Sidestorm composition as well against TY. So there's no reason for him not to do it on this map.
Definitely an unusual choice from uThermal to go for Hellions. Hellions aren't really a staple in this matchup anymore. I remember there was a time when you used to bust down probes and such, but Protosters have got so good at defending those builds. And right now, usually opting for like one of those Raven pushes or just 2 base pushes are much more likely. And also the fact that the Hellions got shut down so hard, and Dia showcased that that is how you defend Hellions, going for them again.
Yep.
Crazy choice.
There is no wall off yet though, and this time I feel like maybe if uThermal doesn't wait for a medevac in the Marines and he just sends the first 4 Hellions in immediately,
or
maybe
even the first 2, maybe, Kevin. Those red Hellions are marching across the map.
But now he revealed them already.
And took 2 hits.
Yep.
You don't get those back. Double Widow Mine in production as well.
Maybe Mine Drop in the main base, 4 Hellions into the natural.
Could this be some crazy mech follow-up from this, do you think?
I don't know, we'll see, but it's very important.
4 Widow Mines, wow.
Yeah, it's very important for uThermal that his medevac actually makes it into the main base of Dia. Because this is a map, I mean, uThermal doesn't know about these Phoenixes yet.
No.
The only thing he saw wasn't a depth, but he should know how freaking good Phoenixes are on this map, obviously.
They're going to fly by the watchtower, though, and this is a big pick for uThermal, so now he knows about that.
It could also be a big pick for Dia, because Dia can actually just lift one of these Hellions and then potentially lift a second Hellion as well. Hellions are light armored units, which means they take double damage from Phoenix, and this is very nice.
It's nice for Dia, obviously, slowing down these Hellions, but...
Yeah, but Dia is so good, man.
He sniffed it out, man. He knew this guy. Why is he not running somewhere else on the map? Why? Oh, look at this. He finds it.
Yep. He's like, I'm getting jebaited over here, but maybe he can still make it into the mineral line. That medevac is boosting. He's going to drop the mines. Can he lift all the mines before they go off? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Well, boys, that's how you shut down this strategy from uThermal. This is not looking pretty.
Ben, close your...
Oh, and a wall at the front as well. Oh my, yeah. Oh, he is not a happy man.
Nope. I don't know if I'm that good at reading lists, but I have the feeling that that's a word I shouldn't have translated. But ban closure Terra. Can we think? Did Dia even lose a unit up to this point? I don't think he did. Right? It's a flawless game so far of our Korean Pro. That was so good. How the moment he was chasing down those Hellions, he's like, wait a minute. I wasn't born last night. I know I'm getting jebaited over here. And he just turns around. And if he's half a second later there, that actually becomes so much more ugly. He has to pull away all the probes. The mines will fire at least once and a couple Phoenixes. And now instead it's absolute total domination. Dia is looking really good.
Yeah, he is. StarCraft's a game of incomplete information. Look, he's just marching past this bunker. There's no units left. There's so many Phoenix still in the sky too. And now we can just basically camp that production if he does so please. But yeah, sniffing that out by just chasing the Hellions a little bit and realizing you're planning something. And then he flew exactly for where the medevac was. That was just really legit, and cancels his stim too.
I mean, there is nothing that uThermal can really do here. He opened up with an opening that was supposed to do a lot of economic damage, that was supposed to keep Dia on his toes and on his side of the map. Instead, Dia shot everything down without really losing anything. He's going to lift the Phoenix as well. uThermal is doing his best to repair this tank as well as he can, but all of the SCVs are going down, and it looks like Dia is going to come out on top here in Group D with a 4-1 record, and just an awesome performance after dropping his first series of the day. Dia really turned everything around.
Oh, absolutely, Kevin. You see players fall apart, but not this man. He was a former GSL champion, I do believe, and today he just showed that, hey, things can start off rough, but then I'm not going to drop a map in any other series that I play, and that's exactly what he chose to do.
uThermal knows that he's fighting for his tournament life, so he's not going to tap out just yet, but deep down inside he knows that he is incredibly far behind in this game. Over 20 workers, nothing has worked out for him, absolutely nothing.
No, he took some risks right in the series, and that's what you have to do when you take on such a good Protoss player like Dia, but the risks, none of them paid off, and Dia, he was very intelligent in dealing with them. I loved the wall off in the first game. This game too, I love the Phoenix usage and how he's just pulled back, and also no misclicks whatsoever, picked up all 4 of those mines.
That was so tight. If he's half a second later there, that's completely different. And this is a completely different game. Then this counter push doesn't happen, or by the time it does happen, uThermal is actually capable of dealing with it. And then we're playing a normal PvP where, you know, things will play out in a super different manner, and maybe uThermal could have made some different plays, but Dia showing up at the right moment. Once again, absolute key moment was just turning around, not getting chased by those Hellions. Ben, I'm gonna tell you, I would have always been chased by those Hellions. I would have been baited. I mean, uThermal knows it.
Oh, he
doesn't see it, but he knows it.
He's in true pain over there. The strategies that you picked, they just didn't work out, and this is StarCraft. A lot of people think there's no luck involved, but he was mighty unlucky and unfortunate to run into a player that sniffed him out straight away, and now just getting on top of this mineral line, on top of the SCVs, all those Marines being shut down. In fact, he's holding the... uThermal's doing pretty good against this. I mean, he is still so far behind, but that fight went about as good as it could go for him, but...
No stim, though.
No stim. That denied stim from earlier.
No stim. The tank went down as well. All of these adapts with resonating glaives are simply a little too much to deal with. GG! Deer wins Group D and will advance into the quarterfinals of the Intel Extreme Masters Katowice 2019. After a pretty damn strong performance here in the final best of 3 of the day.
That was a darn hard group, Kevin. You had TY in that group, you had Sue in that group, but it is Dia that finishes first, and pretty clearly as well. 8-2 in maps in this series, and showcasing that he's got a very good PVT, which he won't really get to display much else in this tournament, but and also he beat Sue 2-0, right? So not bad for him.
There are still a lot of things possible in Group D. We're going to have to do a very small break. After that, we'll be back with Deer and Sue, of course.